Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and with me is Jennifer Wilson. And we are here to talk about the use of a word that we use a lot, especially in the accounting profession, but we hear a lot of people say it, and that is busy. And we happen to be in what's been coined as busy season right now in public accounting. And I was just sharing with Jen that one of my folks, at church was sharing about it and that we're in busy season. And I was just with a group of partners and they were talking about, busy season and putting things off. And I'm too busy to do check-ins with my people, or I'm too busy to meet with that referral source, or I'm too busy to go to my kids, whatever, game. And we just use it, like crazy. And we use it as an excuse or a reason for our inability to do things. It also can feel a little maybe off-putting, like you're too busy for me, whether I'm the child and you can't come to my game, or whether I'm the referral source or I'm the staff person. And so we have a mission this year at Convergence Coaching in 2025, and that is to stamp out the phrase busy season, or the use of the word busy in particular. And we want to shift to some other phrases, and we'll get into that, like peak period and things like that. But I think the first step is to start to recognize how much we use it, and then what the impact is to those that we are in conversation with, or that we're writing it to. We write it in emails. We say it casually when people say, "How are you?" or "How's business?" We say busy. And instead we want to say, start to come up with some other things. But if I'm saying it's, I'm talking to a client, I'm meeting with lots of clients right now, how are things? We're busy. It could feel like I'm too busy for you. Like that's the message it can start to give off. And I just don't really think we pay much attention to that. It's just become so common in our vernacular and in our phraseology, and even our clients know we're in busy season. We've trained them to use those phrases. So, they're like, when you're out of busy season, or if you're not too busy. And so they'll couch things to us. So anyway, I think that's like the first thing we wanted to raise is the probably overuse of the word busy and what some of the impacts are. So Jen, what would you add to that as we're setting this up here? Yeah.
Yeah, just in general, busy is unattractive. So I think that's what we have to think about is I think in the olden days, to be busy was like a red badge of courage, or, to be overwhelmed and inundated and out of control and have more than I can possibly finish. There was something, I guess maybe it comes back to, our farming days or something. You want a crop that's so overwhelming you can't get it harvested or something. But in the olden days, we talked about how busy we were, and other people thought that was awesome and it was like cool. Today, when you say busy, all kinds of stuff comes up for people, but mostly it's something like, I don't know if I want to be like you. And I know NextGen folks don't hear busy like, especially when busy is used as an excuse for not doing something important to you, or important to your practice, or important to clients. They view it like, oh, your priorities are screwed up, or wow, you're not resourced properly, or something's wrong with your lifestyle over there that you have more and you're overwhelmed. And it's just not attractive. It doesn't have the same kind of maybe positive connotation it had a long time ago. We've just dragged it along as a word that we keep using, and our profession has held on to it like a comfy teddy bear or something that we return to every spring and fall, like, oh, busy, yay, I'm going to be busy again. And young people aren't attracted to it. So we're worried about that because it's part of our story. It's like, it's the brand. It's part of our brand image as a profession, and part of your brand image as a firm, and your culture. It's part of our culture. So Tamera and I and the rest of the team at Convergence and many other friends of ours in the profession have been talking about this and saying, hey man, we think we need to stamp it out. we need to first call everybody's attention to it. Like Tamera said, it's like a verbal habit. And when you start to have a verbal habit that you can pay attention to, you can stamp it out. So that's the first thing. Catch yourself saying it. And then evaluate, why am I saying it? What do I mean by it? And what could I say instead that might be less off-putting? And we've been starting to suggest that for those periods of time where work is higher volume and more compressed, you could call those peak periods or peak season. Some people I've heard play around with the word blessed. This is my blessed season, or these are my blessed months. I don't know.
Or when people ask how you are, instead of saying busy, I'm blessed.
Yes, I like that.
Yes.
Blessed with opportunity. We have a good friend, David Cieslak, and a long time ago he told me a story that he had been saying to clients. They'd say, "How are you doing during peak period?" And he would say, "I am so busy." And then he realized that they weren't referring business to him, and he asked a few of them why, and they were like, "It feels like we'd be doing a disservice. We love you, David. We don't want you to take all this business when you're so busy." And so he flipped it and started saying, we're blessed with a lot of opportunity, but we're always open to more. And I love that. That's a way of being where it's not like I'm overwhelmed and outmanned by my volume. Instead, I'm fortunate to have this volume, and I am seeking additional opportunities. I'm interested. And that's a nice open stance. So those are some things related to the positioning. I wonder, Tamera, if you want to talk a little bit about like taking responsibility for using busy as a crutch,
right,
to not do stuff I don't want to do.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's one of the ways that we use busy season. And that's, part of it, we've gotten into the habit, we've gotten into the cycle that I can use it to push back. And because it's so accepted in our profession, people are like, "Oh, okay, then I'll just leave you alone, or we won't bother you with that." We'll even say, "We'll talk about that after April 15th or after May 1st, depending on what deadlines you have, what service line you're in, etc." And, but what happens is then we can use it as a crutch, like you said, John. We can use it as an excuse or a reason, or kind of like a Teflon, thing to, hey, leave me alone. Don't bother me with that. And I can let work pile up. And then maybe, hopefully, you'll forget about it by April 15th. But also, to your point about like NextGen watching us, we don't work on the business. We don't do things that we said were important, like doing check-ins, coaching, delegating, meeting with referral sources. We put those things off, or our strategic plan. Like, we set goals, but I'm not going to progress it between February and April. And then it's like starting up again, instead of saying we should be figuring out how to do this all year long. Now we'll scale. We do have some peak periods. We do have some deadlines. We do have increased volume. So we can scale it, but it doesn't mean we have to take our foot completely off the pedal. And so I think sometimes, we get into the habit, and we see leadership teams do this. We see individuals do this, but they get into a habit like, you can't talk to me, like I'm protected around this bubble of busy season. And it's almost impenetrable that you can't move around it. And we would say, hey, we need to burst that bubble and say, what can we do to progress those things that we said were important to us? And especially those that we've agreed on, whether it's your goals or whether it's something around people, or, it's something around our strategic plan. There's things that we said are important. We need to say, how are we going to progress those during our peak period here?
Yes, I love that. And, Tamera, there are things we can do to be unstoppable during our peak periods, and to, revisit Stephen Covey's quadrant 2, the quadrant of proactivity, where things are not urgent, but they are important. And where we could then say, gosh, Covey calls us in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He calls us to, just a little bit more time, 5 more minutes of proactivity, 30 minutes of proactivity, whatever it might be, that there should be some sort of opportunity for something I'm committed to that has nothing to do with the urgent pile that's facing me during this peak period. So I just want all of us to take responsibility for the fact that we can find that time. One of the things I was thinking about while you were talking is our holiday exercise streak, and that we've been doing it. I've been doing it probably 15 years. And one of the reasons that I did it was because the period of time between Thanksgiving and New Year's for a mother and an entrepreneur who has a peak work period of travel during those weeks, that's insane. And it's winter, and I live in Nebraska, or I travel to winter locales sometimes, that it was really easy to say, I'm too busy to exercise. And then I felt so terrible every year. At the first of the year, I'd have to, practically sign up again, one more year's resolution to get back to the gym or whatever. I just was sick of that cycle, that I just felt terrible about putting it off. And so I decided, well, you know what? Instead, I'm going to tell the whole world that I'm going to exercise every single day from Thanksgiving Day to January 1st. I'm going to tell my family. I'm going to tell my friends. I'm going to tell everybody. At first, I didn't ask anybody to do it with me. I just was like, I'm just going to say it, and I'm going to be unstoppable. And that'll be my Stephen Covey quadrant 4, commitment, or 2, quadrant 2, commitment. I'm going to go over there into the quadrant of proactivity, and I'm going to exercise every day, the equivalent of at least 1 mile of running. And I've been doing it for 15 years or so. And I proved to myself that I could do that, and that I could do it during the most peak period of travel and the most peak period of taking care of my kids and going to all the events and all the stuff. And you can too. It's about prioritization. It's about commitment. And it's about not like letting busy be your excuse for a lack of results that you're really committed to, not letting it be a crutch. So that's a thought. And the other is, be careful using it with your team and family and everybody else, because they start thinking they're going to figure out how to use it too. And they'll use it to excuse a lack of performance in whatever it is that we're trying to cause to happen in our organization. And they may not use your peak period as the story, but they may use May. Well, May's really busy for us at home with all kinds of graduations and school events, and I'm not able to whatever, and I'm not saying.
Or I'm busy with hockey season, or I'm busy with, whatever it is.
Travel baseball. And we know because we did it. All right. We know how hard it is. And we're not saying grossly overcommit and kill yourself doing it. That's not what this message is. This message is, you've got to right size your commitments, and you have to say no appropriately. That's okay. When you say no, try to avoid using the word busy. Try to avoid using your yeses. I said yes to a lot of things, so I'm not able to say yes to this. Try that one. Things like that. That's a little bit more powerful, a little bit more responsible,
right,
a little bit less victimized, more attractive, maybe. I don't know. So that's what we're talking about here. It's just like flip the way we think about this thing. And I think as business leaders and as people leaders, if we don't flip our language, we don't flip our story, we don't take control back, take our power back, our people can't. They won't. They need to see it modeled. They need to see it possible. So anyway, I just think that that's such an amazing shift you could make. And then, of course, to try to share that shift internally and just watch how you're communicating it. A lot of our HR professionals listening, you have like the pen, you have the power of the pen in your business. You're a communicator. And so you could really look at what kind of messages are we sending, and how are we using that word in what places in corporate communications, and what could we do to shift it?
Well, yeah, even like out in our website or out in our social media, or like we put it in so many places. And so we have to just start to watch it. And Jen, when you were talking about the word responsible, just really hit me. I was thinking about that when we stop saying busy season or I'm too busy. And yet maybe I do have too many yeses, or maybe I'm at my peak period. It does make us take responsibility to back up and say, what could I change then to change my experience and change the experience of my staff or change the experience of my family so that I can meet those commitments and those yeses I made. But what else could I put in place? And then that's where business model changes come up. That's where using, non-CPAs that could help do a lot of the coordination and communication and planning for us and scheduling, or that's where we could, use technology. Or on the home front, when my son was younger, his cousin was my Uber driver. And, how do we find solutions to make our yeses work and take responsibility for the yeses without it being a burden? It's like, I'm so busy. How do we set that aside? And instead, what could we do? And our young people are watching us. They're watching to see if they want this to be their career of choice. Our family members are watching us. Our kids, our nephews, our nieces are watching as they are choosing, accounting. Where's that on their radar? Is it even out there? Like, I'll never do that because of, these peak periods, and we're not taking responsibility for it. So I just really, I really think that that's something, if we stop using it and notice where we're using it, we also can't help but say, where can I be responsible for changing something about that? Because my yeses are, still my yeses. And maybe I need to go back and reset expectations and say some no's. That might be one thing I change. But there's so many other things that we could do to make it smoother and not so burdensome. And, so look at me and all I'm handling and this like value we build up and how busy I am. That was the other thing I heard when you were talking. It's like, I'm so valuable. I'm so busy. Yeah. So anyway, responsibility is important.
Yeah, this is a gory beehive we've just put our hand in, Tamera, because it is because we not only say busy and we use it as an excuse and we use it to be victimized, we also we also over focus on hours and inputs and effort, and I was thinking about, like, I'm more of a voyeur on tax Twitter, on X. It's still called tax Twitter hashtag, but on the X platform, I'm not usually posting using the hashtag, but I watch the guys who are, and I appreciate them. They're a real community, but some of them really have some sad posts about now, and really closer to like March 3rd or something, and then again around, I don't know, March 28th or so, you can get some like, another Sunday in the office, like that kind of a post. And first, thank you for killing the accounting brand. We appreciate that. Don't do that anymore. But we're not trying to lie about our work, right? If Sundays are part of the gig sometimes, then we're not going to lie about it. But do we have to Eeyore the thing? And then also, could you have said fewer yeses? Could you fire some clients? Could we right size the work to get out of the Sunday? Could we have managed our time better during the week to not having worked Sunday? Did we decide to do something really hairy and hard on Sunday because it would have just been more comfortable for us to put our head into it then when it was quiet in the office? Did we make this choice? Is it conscious? Are we responsible? Can we own it? Or do we have to act like, that we've been taken hostage and have to work Sunday? These clients, it's somebody's fault and it isn't mine, and I don't know. So I see a lot of that kind of posting in social media. I see a lot of that kind of kitchen table complaining happening. How many hours you're having to work and all that stuff. Well, you own that. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying our work is easy. And I am not saying that some of the stuff that's happening right now in terms of like rowdy change, that's occurring, isn't going to have an extending impact on the amount of time you're going to have to work to try to get things through the IRS or others. We don't know what's going to happen, right? So I'm not saying it's all Pollyanna and perfect, but we better look at who we're being about it. And it'll not just help other people be more attracted and help our clients feel better about us because they worry about us. It'll also help us feel better. That's it. I guess that's the most important part. That when I own my circumstances and I take responsibility and I look for things like Tamera said that could smooth the work and shift the volume, then I feel like I'm no longer a victim. And none of us wants to work in a job that we're victimized by. And too many of us are owners in that business. It's hard to be victimized by your business when you own it, unless you're utterly unwilling to change anything. So anyway, just some thoughts there on the word busy. When Tamera and I started talking about it, we were like, well, could we make a whole HR huddle out of it? And then we're like, yes.
And I think we could still pull apart some of those pieces.
Yes,
but
for sure.
We hope that you stop and just look at how much we're using it, how much you're using it personally, how much your team is using it, where we're messaging it, and what the impact is, and how can we shift our language first, and then how can we shift who we're being about it, and where can we take responsibility, where can we take some control back. And I think there's way more actions than I'm the victim of it. Like, you're stuck. We're not stuck with anything. And if we just make those shifts, you can see those possibilities. That's what we wanted to bring to you and bring to your teams. They'll have ideas, listen to them. And, family members, and just all kinds of, collaboration can happen. So let us know how it goes. Let us know what shifts you're making. And if there's anything you would add to this conversation, we are always interested. Otherwise, have a great week, and we'll see you next week on the HR Huddle. Thanks for being with us today.